Demonstration, we're going to start by creating a workspace in Oracle Apex and then creating an application in it. And then we're going to show you how to work with Git repositories to store the code. So first we're creating a new user and a new application. We call them demo. And then we can log out from the admin interface and log back in as the owner of the new workspace we just created. So that would be the demo workspace with the demo user. Once we sign in, we can go to our app builder and we're going to very quickly create a new application. We're going to base this application off a spreadsheet that has a list of some of expenses that we're tracking. So we'll pick up the spreadsheet and go through the Apex dialogues to load the data. We need to specify a name for the table where the data would reside. So let's specify the name over here. Click load and create the application. So now we have an application with several pages over here. That's the suggestion from Apex. And again, we're going to click to create the application and all of those pages are going to be generated for us. All right, so here's our application. And at this stage, we're ready to switch over and go into Visual Builder Studio, where we have a project and we already have one repository for the connection wallets, but we're going to create another Git repository over here. This is going to be with a README file, and we'll call this one expense. So this is going to be the Git repository into which we're going to check in the code for our application. To do the check-in, we're going to go into the build area and we're going to create a new build job. I'm going to call it load for the code. And then we need to choose a template for our build image. We need a template that has the SQL command line on it. In my case, I created a template called new SQL that has that component. So we're creating the job using that template. And now in the job, we're going to hook up to our Git repository called expenses, and we're going to put this one into a directory called code when we check it out in the Git repository in the build job. Then we're going to create another mapping to another Git repository that would be the wallet repository. This is going to be checked out into the wallet directory. So this way we have those two items in our build environment. Next, we're going to add a step into our build, which is a Unix shell step. And in this Unix shell, we're going to switch over into the code directory. The next thing that we're going to do then is create a branch from our code. So we're going to check out -b, and then we're using a $branch to indicate a parameter. So let's define the parameter. It's going to be a string parameter called branch. We can also have a description of what we want this to be. So for people who are running this job, they'll know what to provide there. So that would be the branch name. Let's also create another string parameter here that would be the comment parameter. And that would be the comment that we're using for our commit. Okay, so back into our steps. Now that we have the two parameters defined, we're going to now add a SQL step over here. So in the SQL we're going to connect to the database where Apex is hosted. So it's going to use the demo user. And then we're going to point to the wallet for this database. So this is in the wallet directory that we checked out into, and then the name of the zip file that contains the wallet. Then you also need to provide the name of the connection string that you're using. Okay, so again, this is going to be different in your case. And then we're going to use an inline SQL to execute the liquid-based command that you can find on the related blog. So over here, we're generating an object of type Apex for an application ID. We need the ID of the application. You can see it up here in Apex. So in our case, it's 100. So we'll put this one in. We have a couple of options for skip export date and export original IDs. We use the -split, and then we're adding the directory code, which is where our Git repository is. So we're going to export everything into the directory. Now let's add another Unix shell script. This time we're going to again switch into the code directory. So this is where we checked out all the code using the Liquibase. Then we're using a git add period -a, a git commit -m, and over here inside the quotes, we're going to use the parameter for the comment that we provided. And then we're going to do a git push, and we'll push into origin what we have in our branch. Okay, so now we can click to save this. And we can go over and execute the build. We are prompted to provide parameters, so we're going to create a new branch. We're going to call this the first branch, put in a comment that says this is the initial version of our code, and run the build. So build is going to be picked up by the executor, and then we'll be able to monitor it through the log. So we can see the build executing over here in the log, and we can track exactly what is happening at each point. Okay, so we can see we checked out the two Git repositories, created the branch, and now we're running this Liquibase command over here. And you can see as it executes, we're generating a bunch of files here for our application. And then we're going to aim to add them and then push them into the repository. Oh, but we can see that something actually failed here. And the reason is because we have the wrong name here. Instead of origin, we have ONG. So let's go back to our job definition and fix this issue. Okay, so just remove the extra E here, and now we can save and run this build job again. So this is a nice practice to show you how you can debug your builds. If something doesn't work, the log would show you that. So again, we provide the same name of a branch, a comment, and we're running the same job again. Once more, we can go and monitor the log. We can see everything that is happening over there. All the files are going to be generated, one file for each object that we're working with because of the split option. And then we're pushing it into the Git branch. All right, so now that this finished successfully, we have the green check mark over here. We can switch over to the Git part of Visual Builder Studio. In the main, we still don't have the code, but if we switch to the other branch, the first branch, we can see the directory. And inside here, for example, we can go and see all the pages of our application directly here. To get the code into the main branch, we're going to execute a process called the merge request. So let's create a merge request on our Git repository. We're going to pick up and target the main with the changes we did in the first branch. We can add reviewers here. I'm going to add myself as a reviewer here. You can add other information about your merge request over here, add comments, and then click finish. In the merge request, you can see all the changed file. We have a lot of changed file right now. You can also do search across them. And if you're happy with the result, you can just click merge and merge the code. This would take the changes from your branch and bring them into the main branch of code. So if we now go back into the Git and into the main branch, we'll see all the files under the F100 directory. All right, so now let's go and see what happens when you do changes to the application. So we go back to Apex, and we're going to open one of the pages. So we'll run the application. We need to log in. And look, for example, at the expense search page that we have over here. And we can see this is how the page looks like. So now let's see what happens if we want to change, for example, how one of the columns look, like the amount column, which right now just shows us a straight number. Maybe we want to change the format. So to do that, we're going to navigate to the search page. and pick up the expense area. We can see, for example, the amount column over here. And one of the properties of this amount column has to do under the appearance. We can find the format mask, which right now is a simple number. So we want to add, for example, the dollar sign and have the comma and like that. Okay, so that's the format mask we choose. Let's also, while we're here, change the title for the column in the application. So we'll call this one expense amount. All right, and now we can save the changes in Apex, and we can even hit run to see the changes in our application. And if we're happy with the results and we want to move those back into the Git repository and document our changes, what we're going to do is we're going to again run the build job we already built. So we'll click run, we'll create a new branch, we'll give it a name like branch 1. We'll give a comment about what were changes we did. So this again will be your commit comment. So make sure that it's clear to the other developers what you're doing here, and we'll execute the job. So the job is going to pick up the code changes using the liquid-based command and bring the changes into our Git repository. So once the job finished successfully, we'll have the little green icon over here. And we can again go and do a merge request. So again, we'll create a new merge request connecting to our Git repository, targeting our main branch with the changes this time from branch 1. Okay, we can see the commits that were involved. We can again add reviewers. This can be you or anyone else in your team. And let's create the merge request. So this time it's a little bit more interesting because we can see that there were changes in 2 files. Okay, you can see this is the page where the changes actually happened, and we can see what was there before in red and what is in there now in green. And indeed we can see the change in the format mask and the change to the title over there, and the change to the dates where the page was changed. So let's approve those changes. Can give comments while you're approving, for example, and click merge. By the way, when you do a merge, you can also delete the branch if you don't need it anymore. So that's what we'll do right now, keep things clean. And now the changes have gone into our Git repository. If we go to the Git repository, we can browse our application, see, for example, which files are part of our application. And when we look, for example, at the pages, we'll see which page was updated with what commit